once we work out all the bugs, hopefully that works.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast. My name is Daniel, and we are so glad that you're with us. Whether you're watching this or listening to this on the go, we are so glad that you have joined us. Today, we have some fancy new microphones in front of us. We're trying to up the quality a little bit of the sound and making sure it's a little bit better. But in the studio, Miss Cheryl is on the far end, and we have a new guest today, Miss Dana.
Hello.
And we are so glad that she is with us here today. We'll talk with her here in a little bit about who she is and what she does. But before we get to any of that, we have a little more information, the verse of the week, for you to start out. And I've been reading a lot in Isaiah, and I was sharing this with the staff this week, and I mentioned on Sunday about how Isaiah chapter 58 to 61 is just a really challenging section. And I said how God promises us things that are even better than we could imagine. And the way that happens is the promise of Jesus. And so in that chapter, it's like, God, where are you? What are you doing? And then he says, well, God's light is going to shine. And they're like, when? And then it gives the prophecy that Jesus fulfills when he's in his hometown. He says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to proclaim liberty to the captives, to care for the poor, to release those who are brokenhearted. And Jesus, in his hometown, says, today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. And the thought that I had that was a continuing one that I didn't share on Sunday was, sometimes it takes a long time for you to see God's promises come true. Doesn't mean that he's not faithful to his promises, but sometimes it takes a little while. So just to start out, I was just curious, do you have something that comes to mind, maybe a personal example or something you've seen where God was faithful to his promise, but it took a little while to see it?
Well, I think initially the first thing that came to my mind, we're going to be talking a little bit about counseling ministry here, is the counseling ministry. So it was in 2010 when God really pulled my heart towards the counseling ministry, walking through the process of getting the degree and talking, with ministry leaders here and what that might look like. Like, God put it on my heart. And now we are 2024, going into 2025, and the counseling ministry is serving our church and the community in amazing ways.
Yeah, you mentioned on the trip, did you mention this about how like God had put this idea and now you're seeing it happening, even though there was a long time in between that?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, that's 14 years? You said 2010?
Yeah, 2010.
Yeah, That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yep.
Do you have anything to...
I mean, just kind of the same thing as Cheryl mentioned with the counseling ministry. I put off school for so many years to go back, and just that pull came, and I didn't have the confidence to do it, and I think just kind of keeping that faith really helped to finally, I think, nudge me along and to show that like he was with me through it, and to kind of make those decisions because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I had so many ideas, and so I'm finally.
So you had a prompting before you knew like what to do with it.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe for some of you who are listening or watching, it's like, okay, I know God's promises are true, but I haven't seen it yet come to fruition. And it's like, God is faithful. Sometimes it takes a little while. And that certainly was true for the nation of Israel, for how Jesus came and fulfilled it, and for our lives as well. So if you missed the service, this past week we were talking about our missions, and we brought up a lot of different of our mission partners. But that was just something that came out that I thought, man, even for our mission partners, a lot of them started mission work, and they weren't sure what it was going to look like. And it took a while for God's promises to be shown as true. So there you go. There's a little thought for the week for you to consider. And really, it's just hang on, because God is faithful to his promises, and keep trusting in him.
Yes, he is. Yep.
All right, we got a couple things that we need to let you know about coming up this next week, the TLCC Top 3 that are happening. The first thing, many of you know this, but some of you might not. We partner with the Community Kitchen in Moberly, much like many other churches, and we take our shift of providing lunch and making sure there's people there to serve. If you have not done this and you have time to go to the Community Kitchen, it is a cool experience to be around people who just need the fellowship. I always assumed it was people who didn't have money. And you have some people that need help, but more than that, it's people who don't have people.
Right.
They're just alone a lot. And it's an opportunity to have a meal with other people. So the community kitchen happens this Saturday. If you want to go, you can just hang out, talk with people. If you want to help serve, they'll be there from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so that's a good thing. The next thing up we have is Trunk or Treat, which is coming up, and we'll do that on October 31st. And the big thing right now is the candy drive. We give out a ton of candy, and we need your help to be able to do that. So if you're able to buy a bag of candy, drop it off. It's right in front of the welcome desk in the lobby. That helps us out so much. And if you're interested in helping with that event, we need cars. If you're into decorating your car with a certain theme, and you can do that. We need candy runners, people that are going around making sure everybody has enough candy to pass out. And do you need help?
I'm working in the concession. We have some hands on deck already, but we're not going to tell people they can't help us. So absolutely.
Do you remember how many hot dogs we gave out?
I don't. I got to look that up. I meant to look.
Hundreds.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe 300 or 400.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good number.
Yeah, and there was still more people to give out too.
Yeah.
So this is a cool event. It's kind of a first contact event for people in our community. And you might say, like, why do you do this? Well, for one, it gives people a safe environment to bring their kids to. Two, it is a good first contact for people who may not go to church at all to know, oh, there's a church that is caring. There's a church that is normal people. We're semi-normal. And it's a great event to be able to connect with them. So it is a lot of fun. It's so much fun to see the kids, and it's low pressure for volunteers. All you have to do is like love on these kids and say, wow, your costume is so great. Like that's all you got to do. So if you're interested in helping, there's signups in the lobby at the sign up table. We'd love for you to decorate a vehicle, pass out candy. It would be great. So that's coming up and on October 31st. The final thing is Women of Worth, our women's ministry, they've got a book club going on. I just found out about this today.
Well, that's fair. You're not in the email list.
I am not a woman of worth.
Yes.
Is apparently the issue. That's okay. But they have a book club that meets, and the next meeting is on the 26th at 9 a.m. at the Bean. So if you are like, oh, I'd be interested in that, the best way to get a hold of them is to get on your church app, the Church Center app, and go to groups. I just did this morning, so I know it works. And go to unique groups. So the list of groups are like Wednesday nights and Sunday morning groups. But if you go to unique groups, you'll see Women of Worth. Join it, and all the information's there. Where they're meeting, what they're reading, all of it's there. And it's not too late to jump in. You know, book clubs, you can just pretend like you've already read the book and, get your coffee, and it's fine. So that's happening on the 26th. The same day in the evening or in the afternoon, they're doing a scavenger hunt from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So there's some great events going on for the ladies, and if you're interested, get on your Church Center app, get a part of the group, and you'll get all that information. So there you go, the top three: Community Kitchen happening this Saturday, candy for Trunk or Treat coming up on the 31st, and then Women of Worth events on the 26th. All right, Dana?
Yes.
One of the things we do for our special guests is I give you 60 seconds to introduce yourself. Some people may know you. Some people may not know you. 60 seconds. Who are you? Who is Dana? What is she about? What do we need to know about you? Are you ready?
Yes.
Go.
I may only have 30 seconds in me, so we're going to drag this out a little
Let's
bit.
do it.
So, my name is Dana. I've been in the area since about 2005. I came down here to work for Moberly Police Department.
Okay.
I was a police officer off and on up until 2 years ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had a break. I worked for Moberly PD and I worked for Monroe County.
Okay.
I recently, 2 years ago, transitioned to probation and parole, so I'm working more on the the social side of the criminal justice system. About 4 years ago, I had this random thought. I actually thought that it was being not spontaneous but impulsive is what we talk a lot about in counseling. I had an impulsive decision to go back to school to get my bachelor's degree.
Okay.
I have no idea why. I just did it. I woke up one morning and said, hey, I think I'll finish school today.
Why not?
In my mid to late 30s. So
Okay.
then after that, it was like, hey, I think I'll do my master's. And I impulsively did that too with no inkling of being a counselor. I did not want to be a counselor. I wanted
Are
to
you an
teach
impulsive person?
I did not think so. So it must have been
It sounds like you might be.
It must have been like God planting seeds, I
Yeah.
think, because usually I'm not that impulsive
Okay.
of like waking up to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't want to be a counselor, and then I got halfway through the program and was like, maybe I do want to be a counselor when I grow up.
There you go.
So that's kind of what I decided.
Tendo. Okay. You said you didn't have 60 seconds. You went a minute 30 on that.
Oh,
one.
no.
Look at you go. That
You
was
didn't
amazing.
even talk about family.
I
You
didn't
didn't.
either.
Okay,
No.
so tell us about your family.
So my husband, he works for Moberly Fire Department. We actually met when we were both young and on our departments,
Okay.
respectively. I
right.
have 2 boys, Scott and Leif. And Scott is my athlete, and Leif he's my special needs kid, but he's
Okay.
also my Sour Patch child. So, yeah, one's just first year of high school, and the other one's in 5th grade. So.
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. Female police officers scare me a little bit. And when I get pulled over by one, not that I ever get pulled over, but when I get pulled over by one, if it's a female, I'm always more nervous than when it's a male.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I guess we're scary because when I was working out on the road, like
Was that-
females were scary sometimes.
They
too,
get a bad
just-
rap sometimes
yeah.
of just being mean. Do you
Yeah.
think females have to overcompensate to be respected more, or what?
I think sometimes, especially in the earlier year, I kind of got it in the kind of that mid transition where people were like more accepting of females in law enforcement, but still very cautious, like basically like until you prove
Yeah,
that you can
do
handle
this.
yourself. But then I noticed they're like that with men too. I mean, when you really
Sure.
get to the nuts and bolts of it. But.
I don't want to get hung up on this, but
Oh,
this
yeah.
is something I didn't know about you. So how long did you spend in law enforcement?
So I graduated in 2003,
Okay.
and I was full-time till around 2011, and then I did part-time work between 2011 and 18. So I held a commission with Monroe and worked some with them as a reserve, and then I went back full-time for about, until 23.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So your kids, family, all of that in that whole process.
Yeah.
And-
When I started, I was single, not married, didn't have kids. I was 21, and
Wow.
yeah, so I had.
And it's not like that's a
stress.
stress-free job. I mean, that's a pretty stressful job.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of life lessons learned, a lot of skills learned, a
Yeah.
lot of experience gained
Yes.
in just seeing the best and the worst in people.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of growing up for me too. Just
Did you
as a
go in
person.
with like a I'm saving the world kind of mentality, or
I really went in with just like.
or was this another impulse?
No, it was actually planned. So I had started working at the jail in Adair County when I was 19. So I already had
Okay.
about 2 years in
Okay.
experience of like going to college, but like working with people
Mm-hmm.
on that side of it. So they call it the blue flame when you first start of that
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to arrest everybody. And, but
That's why I'm intimidated by female officers. They just want to arrest them.
so, but I got lucky. I started off in where I grew up in Knox County for 2 years. I worked for an amazing man, Mike Kite. He was older. He was very down to earth. He really taught me about talking to people and the actual like investigating and all the paperwork and the stuff that you don't want to do when you come out of the
Sure.
academy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all you just want the action,
Yes.
not the
Yes.
office desk
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
So he did teach me a lot about that. And so when I came to Moberly, which was much faster pace, I felt like I was in a really good place with that of not like still being green and wanting to be proactive, but not so proactive that, you know, people don't like you and they don't want to deal with you as a person.
yeah,
So.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So did you retire or did you just leave the law enforcement?
I left.
You left,
Yeah. So
okay.
I did that. I transitioned from, I was a lieutenant investigator when I left Monroe. And so I just kind of transitioned into the state position with probation and parole. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. Well, let's get focused here because I have a million more questions. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah.
And we don't need to know how many people she's shot. We don't need to ask her that. Her arrest count is high, I'm sure.
Yes.
How many people she's wrestled to the ground. We don't need to ask those questions, but I'm curious. But let's get into the counseling side of things. Cheryl, when did you meet Dana? How did this connection happen? And was she an answer to prayer? How was God in this?
So met Dana several years ago. Her and her family were attending Timberlake with Leif, and that's when I come to know her and Scotty. And they were all here. Kind of had a separation of time spent together, and then she came back and said, "Hey, I'm working on my degree, and I need a place to work on practicum."
Yes.
And I said, potentially internship too.
And you're like, free labor?
And so it was really like asking her, where's your heart? Where do you see, God working in this space as well? And why counseling for her? And her answer to me, which I love, was, as someone who's worked in the field of working with people, and also caregiving for her son. She said, both of these are really important to me, that there's counselors for individuals who walk through these situations in their life. And that I could see how important that was to her. And yes, I had been praying, God, show us what direction we're heading with the counseling ministry. That's pretty common for me to pray.
At that moment, if I remember correctly, we'd added Bethany, but you were contemplating, are we going to grow this thing or are we going to diminish this thing?
Yeah.
And it was kind of that, not like crossroads, because we weren't like going to kill it off or anything, but like it was kind of a crossroads of what's next. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can even continue this. So.
Yeah, it was kind of, did we hit a plateau? Yeah, it was more like, are we hitting this plateau or do we continue to grow? But growing means we need more.
You got to add people.
We've got to add people. And it came at the perfect time. And God's timing is always right.
So good.
And so Dana came at that right time. And I was like, oh, this is a blessing and a godsend for both her and the counseling ministry here. And she has served many clients already.
Yeah.
So how long have you been
here.
working with us now?
I started in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are your qualifications wise? What are you still working on? What do you have? What can you do? What can't you do?
So I'm dipping my toes in everything right now, just to kind of I have an idea of what I want to do, but I do have my bachelor's. I am almost finished with my master's. I'm halfway through my internship, so graduating in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So basically, I'm working with people that have dealt with trauma, victims, people that have been victimized, people who are really dealing with depression and anxiety. I did a caregivers group back earlier in the summer. Yeah, earlier in the summer. It was just a small group for people who were caretakers to their loved ones. And so that's kind of what I'm wanting to focus on is really like that trauma and then people who are caring for others. That's very important to me. So
okay. Both of you, don't take this next question as me being negative or aggressive or attacking, because I'm not. But I have this thought where I guess it's kind of it's a tension between these two thoughts where I've noticed counselors tend to go into counseling because they've experienced something and then they want to in turn help people with the things they've experienced. On the flip side of that, which is a good thing, on the flip side of that, I have known some counselors that go into the field and I have felt like, did you really deal with all of the stuff that you had, or are you just deflecting that into helping other people? How do you deal with I'm here to help you? It's a very personal conviction, like because of the stuff that you've experienced and how you want to help people, but not making it about you.
Well, I think on the flip side of that is really just how the clients are responding, because some of them, and I've noticed that like in both worlds that I work in probation and parole and with counseling, is some people, they don't want someone that is just learning out of a book of like, okay, I read about this and these are the steps that we need to take and this is the approach. So
theoretically,
yeah. So a lot of times for me, I like to kind of feel out who I'm talking to see like, are you okay with me sharing something like a little personal so that you're not alone? And others, they don't want that because you don't want to make that about yourself. So it's really about what they're ready for. But I have seen a lot of people that were more accepting if they kind of, even if they get that feeling of, oh, you've been through this, you're not just talking about something that you learned or you staffed or like you've actually kind of been there and can help me. So
that's good. And I should also say I'm fully aware that in any profession you can do that. I mean, I'm a preacher and all the time you have the challenge of, is this about me or is this about the work that you're doing? So I'm fully aware. Cheryl, what would you say to that about that tension of, I think if you and I sat and talked, we could think of some people that went into counseling that were like, maybe you shouldn't be counseling other people yet. Like you got some stuff to work on. But it's always a continual process of working on yourself as you're helping people. So how do you have that kind of balance there?
Absolutely. I think I agree with Dana. The relationship rapport is really important, building that with whoever you're meeting with for counseling. And there are situations where some of your own experiences, life experiences, you do want to share because it is applicable to their situation. It could be helpful to them if they're willing to hear that. Other times, my stuff is my stuff. It's not for them.
It's not you.
It's not for them. And learning that line, I think that's one thing that we work on in getting our degree, but also in time and experience of where is that line of things that we can share, things that we need to keep to ourselves. And I know from my experience stepping into the counseling world, it was less about maybe what I had gone through personally, but watching and walking through difficult life situations with other people at that point in time, and just seeing how many people were hurting and there didn't seem to be an available space for them to walk through that in a healthy way. And then after, and I've talked a lot about it in the last year and a half, after doing this for quite a few years now, God has been like, hey, it's time to work on some strongholds for yourself. And so that's been very, very good for me. And I think as I step all in this space of him also saying, oh, we're ready to take counseling more.
Yeah, even more.
But I think because of that, because of me walking through my personal things, he knew I needed to do that in order to step into the counseling ministry to be more for other people.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go a little bit more into the skeptical, okay? Just so please forgive me for this. What do you say to people who are skeptical of counseling or who think it's just a paid friend for me to talk to? Because there's an element of having someone else to talk to that's outside of your situation, but then I know there's also elements of like real tools and skills that I can help you develop that you might not have. So what would you say to someone who's like, I might need some help, but counseling is they're skeptical of it, that it is useful?
Well, I mean, still building that rapport of like reaffirming with them that they're not alone in it. And I always like to, people that are a little skeptical, like, well, try this. Like, is it going to hurt to try this? To see if it would work or not. And a lot of times if they put their heart into it and they want to do it, if they try a skill that we're giving them to help them through anxiety or something, they'll come back and be like, hey, that kind of works. So maybe they're not just talking to talk but I mean, I do kind of get it where people are skeptical. I mean, I came from a world where a lot of people did not get help because of stigma or because they're skeptical.
Rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not going to go do this because how can I help other people if I'm not? So, I mean, very much skeptical. I think one of them that I know was very much of like, the doctor said I needed to go to counseling, but I don't want to talk to some fat dude in a sweater and share my feelings and them not know what I'm going through because they don't do what I do. So I really think,
interesting.
Like talking.
I've never heard that stereotype before.
I've heard it.
I have heard
the
it.
fat dude in a sweater.
Yes.
As you lay down on the couch.
Very specific to that. But I mean, but yeah, I think just like kind of showing that it works, and I mean, really, in how we're doing counseling, a lot of the people that come are there because they want to be there and they want to try it.
Do you, for some people, at least for me, the idea of counseling was like, you start it, you do it for life, and you're kind of stuck in it forever. As I've watched Cheryl and as I've watched you guys do this, a lot of times it is situational where you're in a rut or you're stuck in a place, and I can help you through this circumstance, give you some tools on how to navigate this, something within you or something external. Have you? Of course, there are counseling clients that you keep long term, that you're working through difficult situations, but is it often that you have just shorter term, like we're working through this circumstance? And maybe Cheryl, you can speak to that.
Yeah, I do have a variety of both, but tend to lean more on the idea of doing counseling. Really is we should be putting ourselves out of a job that from the onset of the first session.
And that's the stigmatism. That's the opposite, is like, you're just going to keep me here so you can keep getting paid.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't want that for people that are coming to get the help that they need. At some point, hopefully they're able to
move on
to graduate in that. But yes, there are some where they're, whatever the situation is in their life, it does keep them in a space of needing that continued support. May not need to be weekly, but check in once a month, every other month, depending on where they're at.
Yeah. Dana, how does your faith strengthen, inform, affect what you're trying to do to help people?
I mean, I was one of those, I'm not even going to fib about it, but I was one of those that was very much of like resistant to counseling for a long time, because I had the stigma of like what I did and helping people. And so I finally started, and I even had where my department was like, hey, you need to go do this because of an incident that happened. And I was like, I'm just going to tell them what they want to hear and go.
Right.
Like, I did like 2 sessions. They cleared
Check
me to go
out the
back
boxes.
to work.
Yeah.
But kind of as I grew and I matured a little bit, I was like, we had life. He had medical stuff, like all of the stuff I've seen doing what I did. I was like, man, I need a little help. And so I think God led me actually here for that just self-disclosure. To start that. And then I just think that like really hearing him calling me to do different things. Like I said, when I started my counseling degree, it was because it would be hard to do an internship with Homeland Security. So I was like, my school only offered 2. I was like, I think I'll do counseling. That was not an impulsive decision. Doing my master's was impulsive. But with the options, I was like, I'll do counseling. I'll use this degree so I can teach online part-time. And then I really started feeling that pull of like, I would do these papers about caregivers or people in law enforcement not getting help because of stigmas, because of cost, because of availability. That's the big one of like being put on super long wait lists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think, like I said, I did this one paper. It was like an 8-page one about like affordable care for people that were first responders, and just kind of how to pitch that to them to get them involved, and like having counselors and peer counselors on board that had been in those situations, because that's very important to have somebody that's like, hey, I have been there with you.
Right.
I was resistant to it and I needed help, and here's where I'm at now. Try to get them to follow suit. So I really feel that my faith, like, I don't even want to say pull it, like drugged
you.
Like drugged me. And at first it was maybe kicking, screaming nails, but but then it was like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So
what are some, I guess, in that vein of first responders, law enforcement, and even caregivers, we know many people who watch this or who listen to this are either know people in that role or have been there in that role before, where they are the person, or they're dealing with people who feel like they have to be the ones to give, but they can't receive.
Yeah.
Any encouragement to them of how you can help the person realize it's okay to receive, and you really do need help, and it's not a weakness to need help.
I really think just reaffirming and kind of sliding in there to like do things without being asked, not overstepping boundaries, but especially for caretakers. I know one time we were sick. Leif wasn't feeling good. Cheryl brought me chicken noodle soup, so I didn't have to cook that night. And I never asked her, but I still have that big jar too if you need it.
You need it back right now. She needs it. Actually, thinking about it, she needs it.
Yeah. But I mean, just doing things like people did that for us. Just like planting that seed of maybe you need help. Picking up groceries, like people would just pick up groceries and be like, I know it's hard for you to get out because of cold and flu season, him getting sick, you don't have anybody to help really take care of. My husband was working 3 jobs at the time, and I was staying at home for a bit. And so just like really getting that help was like, this isn't so bad to like accept it. And so, reaffirming that, offering to do things or just doing them for them to help out.
Yeah, because sometimes saying, what do you need is overwhelming for someone in the moment. I can't even think about what I need and putting that on you. Yeah. Instead, just saying, hey, we were at Chick-fil-A and I got you a sandwich. I don't even know if you like chicken, but I'm going to get this for you. It reminds me of the scriptural concept that says, when you're weak, then you're strong. The idea that when you need help, you find the strength that truly matters, not just putting it out there, especially in law enforcement, because for one, like for me, when I'm talking to someone, if I've not been in law enforcement, there's an already like, you don't know.
Yeah.
And then I also can't let any of these guards down.
Right.
Because I don't want to show you any sort of weakness.
Exactly. Yeah. It's okay. It is okay.
You're going to survive.
You can do it. Like, do it. You have to do it for yourself. So, I mean, because if you don't, it doesn't just affect you. Like, impacts your family, the people around you. So, self-care is definitely something I like to push. I don't always practice it because busy in life, but I do when I'm mindful of it. But definitely that self-care and caring for others. So.
I might be putting you on the spot, so just tell me no if you want to. But do you know what's going to be next once you're done?
So my plan is to finish up my internship, and I would like to stay with Timberlake, especially while I'm getting my licensing. I do have to pass the NCE, so if anybody has any helpful tip, it is our exam that we have to pass so that we can get our.
I mean, like, when is that coming?
So I cannot do it until after I graduate, and I have to submit all of my stuff to board and. Yeah.
So, I was just saying, then we could be praying for you around that time. So after May, in the summer, it's going to be big.
Yeah. So Cheryl was kind enough to give me the purple book so I can study.
Yay.
It's the purple book.
It's
book.
overwhelming.
You're in counseling, the purple book.
I've downloaded apps for mock quizzes, and some days I do really good, and some days I'm like, maybe I need to be impulsive and do something else.
Maybe I need to go learn how to make pizzas or something.
No, but yeah, I mean, my plan is to stay here.
That's great. We love that. Well, let's kind of wrap this up with what does the counseling ministry look like right now at Timberlake, and what are some things that are going on that people should know about? They only could participate, but also can be praying for. So what's the counseling ministry look like right now? And then end with also like maybe that's a little sprinkling of what it could be.
Well, what it looks like right now. We'll start there.
Let's start there.
Right now we have our groups finishing up, divorce care and grief share. So we have a couple more weeks left with those. They'll pick back up in January. So if anybody wants to come and check those out the last couple of weeks of this session, just to get a preview, we'd love to have you, and then be able to start back up in January. We have our Surviving the Holidays events coming up on October 29th. That's at 6 p.m. And that will just be that one evening, a 2-hour event, just kind of preparing grief share, divorce care situations for the holidays.
So specifically individuals who have gone through loss, gone through grief, gone through, maybe some traumatic things that come back around. Those memories around the holidays are always a charged time, and giving them encouragement, maybe some tools and reminders that they need to make it through the holidays in a healthy way.
Absolutely. And you can find those groups, those events on the Church Center app as well, just to be able to have that information, register for the Surviving the Holidays. Would be helpful.
Does that cost anything?
We have a book that we give in that. We'll take a $5 donation to help cover the cost, but we will also scholarship that if someone needs to be there. So
just come.
Just come.
And if you have someone that you think it doesn't have to be a Timberlake Church member. Someone that's gone through grief, that's gone through some trauma, that you know it's going to be a hard time for them. Just say, hey, I'll come with you. Let's do this together. To support them would be fantastic. A great way to help them.
Yep.
So what's the date for that?
October 29th.
October 29th.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we currently have another group. I'll let you speak to Al-Anon.
Yes, so we have Al-Anon on Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock. We're in week 3. We have 9 more weeks left, but I think if we can still have enough interest in it, then it's something that we would like to keep on going. So yeah, Tuesday nights at 6 p.m.
Not me, but for everybody else that might be ignorant, definitely not me. What is Al-Anon?
So Al-Anon is for family members and loved ones who have someone in their life who suffered from alcoholism, also with narcotics addiction. So it's a group for those people who are kind of walking through that to help understand addiction, help understand boundaries, codependency, and kind of how to maintain yourself. And for those that have only heard of it and not been, I was guilty of it too when I found out about it 5 years ago. I was like, why should I have to go if somebody else has a problem?
Right.
It is not that. It's addiction is a family disease, and so it impacts everybody involved too. Yeah.
So if you or someone you know has someone in their family that has addictions, this is a reminder, not only a reminder, but encouragement that you're not alone, but also some training of how you can make sure you're not overwhelmed, pulled down with them. And then how do you navigate some tricky situations? And there's people who have been through it before that can help you with it. So that's on Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. And this is something that we think could be a continual ministry. And again, doesn't have to be Timberlake people. If you have a friend or someone you know that goes to another church, but they don't have a ministry like this is not just for Timberlake. This is for the community. Yes. So that's great.
Yeah. And I think that that's important to remember, because I do get that question a lot with our counseling ministry here. Oh, do they have to attend Timberlake?
Right.
No, we are offering this ministry obviously for members here, but really for our community. Whether we're doing a group, we're doing an event, or we're offering just the counseling services in general. And so it's for everybody.
What a great transition to the sprinkling of what it could be, Cheryl.
Could be. Yeah.
Because it's not just about when we're looking at needs in our community. We know there's addictions. We know that there's poverty. We know that there's people in need. We know that there's family issues that go on. Just give us a 30-second dream big here for a moment.
Dream big. There's that we can offer a lot of community outreach. So not just doing some one-on-one counseling, but also having that space of what else is needed for social determinants of health issues that everybody may work through. So transportation, housing, just paying the bills. Some of those things are so badly needed in our community. Yeah. And thinking about the counseling ministry being able to reach big, like that's a space God has put out there. So we'll see where he takes us in the next 10 years.
I love it. I love
it.
Well, Dana, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here. If you see Dana around, make sure you say hi. And if you think about it and have a space where your heart is prompted to pray for the church, and you're like, I'm not sure what to pray for the church. The counseling ministry faces all sorts of stuff, and it's growing, and there's some exciting things on the horizon. So pray for the counseling ministry, and pray that God uses it in a great way.
Yes.
Final thoughts, ladies?
I don't really have a lot at this point.
Yeah.
We said it all.
We said it all.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us here this week on the Ripple Effect podcast. We've got a couple exciting episodes that are going to be coming soon. We get to talk to David Fincher and talk about what it's like to be the president of a Christian college. We have a special episode coming up with some surprise guests that I'm really excited about. So stay tuned, and we will see you here next week on the Ripple Effect podcast. And we're out. Now, I'm hoping